Hi, Kathy.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of what are we calling this? Alberta Separation for Dummies, Take Two.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to call it that. So, as those who follow already know, we already did a video, Alberta Separation for Dummies, a month ago, something like that.
It was definitely, yeah, it was a
Yeah.
while ago.
And since that time, we have learned some things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've
That
learned some things. Some things have happened, like a federal election.
federal election has happened. Our premier has tossed us a couple of nice bones
Yep,
that we're going to talk about. And
yep,
so we thought that we would do an update to Alberta Separation for Dummies. And basically, what we covered in the first video and what we're going to cover here is the presentation that we give as the Alberta Women's Independence Network when we're going into people's homes. Last week we did one in it was a hotel conference room. We had
yeah,
quite a
Grand
number of
Prairie.
people there, Grand Prairie. So when we're doing these meetings, we have a set presentation that we give. It doesn't take very long,
Mm-mm.
but we find that it is super effective and yeah, people come out of there just armed with some knowledge about Confederation, about Alberta history and Confederation, and about the root cause of all this discontent and disunity that we see in the West. And they
Mm-hmm.
finally understand, this is exactly what we're dealing with. And then, of course, we talk about what are the remedies within the legal framework of Canada.
Correct.
Yeah, so we're just going to jump right into that again. But like I said, we've got some more information to share and some updates, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and share this screen. All right, do you see that, Kathy?
I do now.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so there's one handout that we give,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't give any explanation. We just hand it out and then we
Yep.
wait for the response, which can be pretty entertaining sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kathy, what was your favorite response last week at the Grand Prairie?
My favorite response in Grand Prairie was the math ain't mathin'.
No, the math ain't mathin'.
Nope.
And my favorite response was, what fresh new hell is this? And I was like, it's not new. You've been living under this system your whole life.
That's
And
right.
didn't even know. So we have Senate seats by region, and then we have
Yep.
House of Commons seats by province. So I like to start with the House of Commons seats. And the
Yeah.
question that we always ask is, how did we come up with these numbers? Where did these numbers come from?
Mm-hmm.
And the number one guess?
Supposed to be by population.
Population. Well, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Should.
Right. And it is by population, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually an equation. There's a whole equation that you can go online and you can see it on the Government of Canada website. And population is the very first factor. So they do look at the population, but then there are two clauses that are applied to the equation,
Yep.
which really skew the whole population by representation thing. So those two clauses are the first one is the grandfather clause. Now, the grandfather clause is something that up until this last election hasn't really been used, hasn't really had an effect on the numbers. But what it is in 1987, they kind of drew a line in the sand and they said, okay, so the number of seats that you have in the House of Commons right now in 1987, you will never go below that. Even if you were to lose all your residents, you will never go below that line. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
grandfather clause. Now, we're going to come back to the grandfather clause in a minute. Um, because in this election, it actually was used for something. The second clause is a senatorial clause, and that one actually does have a much larger effect on these numbers.
Right.
And basically, the senatorial clause says that no province will have fewer seats in the House of Commons than they have in the Senate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us up to the Senate. So Kathy,
Yeah.
you're always so good at explaining how on earth we came up with this crazy whatever it is of numbers. So why don't you go ahead and explain that?
It makes me angry. Maybe that's why I'm so good at it. It just makes me angry. So this goes way back to when we were first brought into Confederation. If we look at Ontario and Quebec, of course, we see 24 and 24 seats because though they had their own battles in creating Canada, and that was one of the concessions they decided to make with one another. Then in 1867, when we became the Dominion of Canada, that was Ontario, Quebec, Manitoba, and New Brunswick that were a part of that. Yes, I'm sure it was New Brunswick that were a part of that. And they sat down at the table and said, okay, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do? We're under the Westminster system of governance. And so Manitoba got 6 seats. They seemed to think that that was fair. New Brunswick got 10. They seemed to think that that was fair. Um, boggles my mind on that. But anyways, that was how it went. So then they were, you know, clipping along, tickety boo, everything was fine. And at that time, Alberta and Saskatchewan existed as part of Rupert's Land, and then more than that, as territories in the province of the Northwest Territories. So it's not the territories as we know them today, it was the province of the Northwest Territories. Alberta was a territory, Saskatchewan was a territory. Well, that was our first big boom. People were coming from everywhere because we were the last best West. Now, the folks in Ottawa that were advertising us as the last best West did not tell anybody about -40. So they were all coming and they wanted to make their homes here. They were bringing their families and their businesses and all the rest. And the population was actually swelling quite quickly. And as it was swelling, the folks that the business minds of the day realized really quickly it's tough to get things done when your government is way over there and you're needing approval and this and that and the other to get the things done that they wanted you to do, that they brought you in to do. So they said, you know what, we need to sort this out. So at the time, our our premier at the time was Haultain. You might recognize that name, some of you. And so he was tasked with going and talking to the folks that lived in the territory of Alberta and in the territory of Saskatchewan to see what kind of ideas they could come up with. So they came up with this great idea that those two territories would create a brand new province, and that would be the province of Buffalo. Now, some people might not understand the history and why this word buffalo keeps coming up. Well, that's the genesis of it right there. That was what was supposed to happen. So Haultain said, yep, okay, it sounds like a great idea to me. He takes that idea to Ottawa, where all great ideas go to die. And that's exactly what happened. It died because the folks there and the federal government understood and realized that our population was growing very quickly. And we're pretty smart over in these neck of the woods and know how to get stuff done. And if our numbers got too big, we would outnumber. The West would outnumber the East, and the balance of power would come to us. It is right in history that that was never the intention. We were always supposed to be feeding the East. Whatever we did was supposed to feed the East, not feed the West. So we've always had this imbalance. The result of that whole conversation was those in Ottawa said, you know what, we're just going to take a ruler and a pencil. We're going to draw a line right down the middle of Alberta and Saskatchewan, and we're going to one-up you and make 2 provinces. And nobody's negotiating their way in. Nobody's going to tell us how this is going to be. We're just going to tell you how it's going to be. And we figure 6 Senate seats is probably good for each of you. It'll cap off at that. And after y'all are under the 1905 Act, then we'll get you a legislature and we'll sort all of that stuff out and you can finally have some provincial representation. So we never negotiated our way in. We were literally colonized, and we were literally colonized in such a way that we would always be weaker, even though we have more resources, more everything with which to fund everything that the country needs. So that was how it was designed, guys, is for us to be always under thumb of
Yeah.
Ottawa.
Yeah. So to kind of recap, so Yeah, we had Upper Canada, Lower Canada, they each got 24, beginning of
Yep.
the Senate, you know. The Maritimes negotiated their way in.
Yep.
Is why PEI has 4. I mean,
Yep.
the population-wise, they should have 1, like the
Yep.
territories type of thing. And then, yeah, we were granted our 6 out
We were
west.
granted our 6.
Yeah,
Yep.
there was no negotiations. And of course, Newfoundland came in the late 40s, somewhere around there, and they negotiated 6 as well.
Yep.
But yeah, no negotiation. So now, okay, that's a really good explanation. Um, do the Senate seats ever change?
No.
No. No, and what people don't understand a lot of times is that those numbers are written into the Confederation Act.
Yep.
Unless we reopen Confederation, those numbers don't change.
They don't. And in fact, I had someone say that to me. I think it was on LinkedIn this morning, said, well, let's just change that. Let's just change the Senate so that it'll make it equal. Well, to change the Constitution, that requires a lot, guys.
There's a process. Yeah, yeah, we'll touch on that one in a minute. There's a whole
Mm-hmm.
process to it. And so it doesn't really matter who is in government. These numbers don't change.
Nope.
Okay, so Pierre Poilievre was not going to save us from this fiasco. Now, the House of Commons seats, they do change. And
Mm-hmm.
I will explain that. So you'll see here, I don't know if I hope folks can see this. It's kind of small. But originally I had 34 for Alberta, and now there's 37. BC went from 42 to 43, Ontario 121 to 122, and then Quebec has a little circle around it, so I don't forget to tell you about Quebec. So what happens is every 10 years there's a census in Canada, and after the census they form a committee. Each region forms a committee to take a look at the changes in population,
Mm-hmm.
at which point they submit their report to the House of Commons with their recommendations as to if there should be any changes in the allocation of seats in the House of Commons due to the portion of that equation that is population. Okay.
Yep.
So in the last census, which was 2021, it was recommended that Alberta should receive 3 more seats because our population has grown that much in the last 10 years. So that's what we got. We got 37. Same thing with BC and same thing with Ontario. They each got 1 more seat because their population also grew enough to warrant that. However, and this is where we get to the grandfather clause being used. The committee that was working on the numbers for Quebec, they kept stalling and they would not submit their report, their recommendation. And finally, it came out that what had happened was Quebec had lost enough population over the previous 10 years that they needed to lose a seat
Mm-hmm.
to fit into the current equation. Well, they raised such a fuss that the House of Commons, including all the conservative House of Commons MPs, agreed and said, fine, what we'll do is we'll change the grandfather clause so that now Quebec will not lose a seat. And
Mm-hmm.
so in that instance, the grandfather clause was applied. And so Quebec really, if we're going by population and by the equation that we've used for a long time, it should be down to 77, but they're at 78.
78.
Yeah. So that's the way that goes in Canada. And why? I mean, if Alberta threw a fit and said, no, we want more, would they ever capitulate to us?
Mm-mm.
No, because it's a numbers game. And this is what we saw with the federal election, right? That
Yep.
CBC was able to call the results of the election, and they were right 8 minutes after the polls closed in Alberta.
Yep.
And why were they able to do that? Right here, folks. 122 and 78.
Yep.
Okay. So the magic number for a majority, I believe, was 174, somewhere around there.
Something like that.
Yeah. Well, well, here, this whole
It's right
eastern
there.
part, yeah, they decided it right there. These folks decided the outcome of the election. Come to find out, there's only been twice in the last 50 years that the votes in Alberta actually affected the outcome of the federal election.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
So
really strange, but it doesn't happen. Obviously, it doesn't happen often enough.
no, and it
So,
doesn't happen because there's enough seats concentrated in this area right here that our votes are not actually needed.
No.
It's a charade, and I hate to tell people that because I think they live in a democracy, but in a democracy that has unequal and unfair representation based on geography,
Mm-hmm. Well,
which
that's just it. And then when we look at, and when we did the first video of this, we were talking about if Pierre gets in, it's not going to matter
right,
because he still has to go for those Eastern votes if he wants to make government. So he
100.
can say all kinds of nice things about, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this for Alberta and Saskatchewan and central and northern BC. But at the end of the day, if that is going to lose him votes in these other provinces, he's not going to do it. And we've seen that
And
time and time again.
yes, I was going to say history has shown us that over and over. Stephen Harper was from Calgary for Pete's sake, and he went to Ottawa with great aspirations for the West that
Yep,
never materialized because if he wanted to be reelected, these right here are the votes that count.
yep,
It's
that's
just the way
exactly.
it is. It's
Yeah.
number, right? So then the question always is, well, what can we do to change this? This isn't
Hmm.
fair. Anybody with any type of moral compass can point that out and say, yeah, this is not fair. So how do we change it? So there's actually two ways, and people get so excited about this when they find there's two ways within the legal framework of
Yeah.
Canada that we can change this. Okay, so the first one, Kathy,
Yeah.
pretend you don't know this.
Okay.
So the first one is you get 7 out of 10 provinces
Hmm.
representing 50% of the population agree to open up confederation and renegotiate the formula and these numbers. So tell me, which 7 out of 10 will we get?
7.
Yeah, you need 7, and the territories don't count. It has to be a province.
Hmm. We're not.
Come on, there's 10. There's got to be at least 7 who will look at this and go, that's not fair. Let's make it more fair for all Canadians.
Well, but if they made it fair for all Canadians, they would lose a lot, so they're not going to do it.
Yeah, and that's what we have run into historically over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Is that the balance of power is in the East, and they are not willing to give that up in order to play fair with the rest of Canadians.
Hmm.
Okay, so that one's not going to work. We've thrown that one out.
Oh, before we
Um,
move on from here, too,
hmm,
we also should point out that in the Senate right now, even if we had a conservative government, it is stacked with liberals.
yeah, how does that work?
Well, the Senate seats are appointed by the premier or the prime minister.
Hmm.
And so even though we do our best to elect our senators, it's really just, this is who we like. Hopefully you agree. That's all it is. At the end of the day, the prime minister picks whoever they want, and it doesn't happen very often that they pick who we decide as
Right.
Albertans that we want in there. So as seats come open, the prime minister gets to fill those seats. And during the time that Trudeau was prime minister, he got to fill 95 of the 105 seats. So even if Poilievre won, it would not have mattered. Anything that he tried to do would have been stopped in the Senate. Senate is supposed to be the sober second thought, but it's not, when it's stacked like that, there's nothing sober about it.
Absolutely. And I mean, Alberta, and we saw this with the most recent election. I mean, we vote overwhelmingly conservative. I think 3 of
Yeah,
our ridings, 2 went liberal, 1 went NDP, right?
yeah, yeah.
But overwhelmingly conservative, and yet we don't have a single conservative senator representing us.
Mm.
And it's just an absolute joke. Like the last guy that got appointed by Trudeau to be Alberta senator, he worked with the NDP when, 2015 era type of thing when they were in government to put together packages of pornographic material to give to children, kindergarten to grade 12, who were involved in gay straight alliance clubs at their schools. And that
Mm-hmm.
came out in the news. So I remember just being shocked and not being able to believe it, going and clicking on the link to see the resource package myself and just like falling out of my seat.
Yep.
It was unbelievable. And he'll be in there till he's 75 or dead.
Exactly. And that's the worst part. Like, we can't even vote these guys out.
No.
There's nothing we can do
Yeah.
at
So
all.
we think we live in a democracy, and people say, oh, I live in Canada's a democracy. No, it's
No,
not. I'm here to tell you it's not. And I know that sucks. People don't want to hear that, but that's the way it is.
it's true.
Okay. So the other way that we can change this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So 1995,
Yep.
Quebec has a referendum on separation. They want out, right?
Yes.
It's defeated, like barely. It's barely defeated. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But what came out of that experience was the government of the day then turned to the Supreme Court with a reference question, they call it. So it wasn't an actual case, it was just a question to the Supreme Court. And the question was, does a province in Canada have the right to unilaterally declare independence and secede from Confederation?
Right.
It took a couple of years for the Supreme Court to come back, but what they came back with was no, unless they meet these two requirements.
Right.
Okay. So the one requirement is that there has to be a referendum with a clear
Question.
question. Yes. So if you look at the question that was asked in the Quebec referendum, not clear. It's like a paragraph long. There's like four different layers. People knew basically what it was asking, but yeah, it was not clear and to the point. So, clear question. And the second is you have to have a very clear majority
Mm-hmm.
in favor of that question, that referendum. They did not say what a clear majority is,
Correct.
right? And so, like, I've heard some people say, oh, 50 plus one. And I've heard other lawyers say,
Mm.
50 plus one is really great if you're deciding where to put a bridge.
Yeah.
Probably not going to be enough if you're deciding the fate of a nation. And so I think the general consensus is like 60 to 70% you would be able to make the argument that it was a very clear majority.
Yeah. And I agree with that, right? I mean, it's a big deal.
It
So
is a big deal.
it needs to be more than 50% plus one. It
Yes.
has to be.
It has to be, and considering um what we're going to be up against when that happens, we definitely want to be able to say that we have a clear majority.
That's right.
So the reason why I say that situation could change this is because the government of the day then took that from the Supreme Court
Mm-hmm.
and they created something called the Clarity Act. So they used the information that the Supreme Court gave them and they kind of fleshed it out and made it an act, right? So
Right.
now it is law in Canada. And what it states is that if a province meets those requirements laid out by the Supreme Court of Canada,
Yeah.
that then triggers negotiations between the federal government, all provincial governments, and the First Nations.
Yep.
All of them must, by law, come to the negotiation table and they must negotiate in good faith.
Yeah.
So, what we say to folks when we're doing the presentation is if you believe that Alberta should stand on its own and that it could be its own independent nation, and that's what you would like, and you were given the opportunity to vote yes on a referendum to that end, then you should do that.
That's right.
Or if you believe that Canada can be saved, but that this situation right here, these numbers and this situation are not tenable, not sustainable, and needs to be fixed, then the only way is to vote yes on a referendum, which would then trigger those forced negotiations because it's not like Alberta and the West has not tried.
Mm.
It's not like we haven't pleaded and begged and sent the Reform Party to Ottawa
Yeah.
to try and bring in the Triple E Senate, right? Elected, equal, effective.
Yeah.
And it's not like those efforts have been buffeted every single time. They have. That's the history. And so now we're to the point where we have to force this.
Yeah,
Now,
we
Kathy,
do. Hmm.
I'm with the first one. I'm like, 10 years ago, I might have been like, yeah, let's force the negotiations. We can fix this. After 10 years of the election and re-election of Justin Trudeau and his corrupt government, and it's the re-elections that kill me.
Hmm.
I'm done. I don't see any way out of this.
Yeah, I've been done longer than that,
Yeah.
honestly. It just has really become much more real over the last 5 years. And the learning curve of it has been pretty remarkable. Even this. Um, one of the pushbacks that we get and we hear is there's some rumor out there that Quebec gets a veto. No, they don't.
I've read the Clarity Act and I challenge everybody to look it up. It's a page long. It's not long.
It's not long.
It
No,
doesn't
it's
say
not long.
anything about a veto by the First Nations, Quebec, the feds.
No
It does
way.
not mention a veto anywhere in there. It says negotiations.
That's right. That's right. And the other thing that I've heard come up that we need to kind of debunk right now is that, well, this opens up the Constitution and therefore 7 provinces and 50% need to come on board with all of this. No, this is not that. This is specific to us seceding from Confederation. Now, that and so that contrasts with what we were talking about earlier if we wanted to change the seats, right? If we wanted the Senate to be much more fair, or even the number of seats in Parliament to be much more fair, that opens up the Constitution, which is then the 7 provinces that equal 50% of the population. This is not that. This is,
Right.
we are getting ready to go. You better come to the table so that at least we can do this all nice and look good on the world stage at the end of it.
Yeah.
That's what this is. And hats off to our premier for admitting she doesn't agree, but she said she trusts Albertans and she's
Yeah.
leaving the choice
Yeah.
to us to make. So at this point now, we as Albertans have every obligation to take every opportunity to get out there and tell the provincial government how we feel, regardless what side you're on.
Yeah.
Regardless what side you're on, you need to get out there. And two, if you are against us being an independent nation, I'm going to challenge you with the question, why?
Mm.
Why are you against it? What is it? And don't give me your romantic answers. Like, think about this, with your left brain logic, not your right brain romanticism. Why? Why should we stay? What benefit is it to us? And if you can't answer that logically, then you might want to consider
Right.
what it is we're talking about and why. And be nice about it when we're talking to one another. Be nice. Like,
Mhm.
we literally are all Albertans. Let's not let these guys, what they're going to try to do is peg us against one another.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's what
We've
they're
seen
going to
that
try to do.
already. The
Yeah.
fear mongering and the misinformation or whatever you want to call it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
they're
even the people within our, yeah, even like the people within our movement, right? It drives me bananas to see them on Twitter and barking and whining and crying, and then they're getting all mad and angry. It's like, okay, that's not helpful.
No. And in fact, this is actually a very hopeful time in Alberta.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see any need for anger. Sure, there's some frustration when we look at the numbers and we go, how on earth has it lasted this long? Right?
Yeah.
How on earth have we lived like this? How on earth was it even created like this? Right? Knowing full well the imbalance. So sure, frustration.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we do not need to despair. I know some folks are really despairing, what's happened with the most recent election, that we've re-elected another corrupt government with the same people and the
Mm-hmm.
same ideologies, and they're very disturbed and distraught and somewhat in despair about it. And my thing is walk away.
Yeah.
Leave that behind because we have this actually really fantastic future ahead of us that I don't sleep at night sometimes thinking about it and how exciting it could be. And it
Mhm.
is how exciting it is. And Alberta, I run a bed and breakfast here in just outside of Waterton, and we
Mhm.
see people come here that have saved for years to be able to come to Alberta and spend, it's their bucket list vacation type of thing.
Yeah.
And the awe that they have for the beauty of this province. And then, you talk to them more about, yeah, we've got agriculture and we've got these beautiful mountains and we've got minerals and we've got oil and gas and it's just an amazing, amazing place, right? So
It
this
is.
is a time of excitement for Albertans.
It it really is, and a time to dream. Like
Oh yeah.
catch that vision. I was having lunch with someone today who's finally a separatist. I'm so excited. It's been 4 years I've been working on this, guys. Like, come on. And so finally, because I was nice, he's there. He's with us all the way. And so we were chatting about some things this morning. And I thought of our other good friend in the middle of this conversation that I was having with him, whose daughter has had some unbelievable medical challenges
Mhm.
that are not being addressed properly by the medical system that we have. And
Mhm.
so over lunch with this other guy, I said, imagine if we were a destination station for healthcare.
Oh my goodness. It
We
could
could
totally
do that.
happen,
We could
right?
do that. We could be the go-to for healthcare. That people come here because our healthcare is so amazing.
Yeah.
Like that is just one example.
And that will never happen as long as we're part of Confederation and under the Canadian Healthcare Act.
Exactly.
It will
It
never
can't.
happen.
No,
It
it
can't happen.
can't.
No.
It can't. Or even education wise. We could have the most sought after post-secondary education here
Yep.
because we were able to build what we know works rather than be hamstrung by these stupid education acts that exist right now. Or
Yep.
worse, having our schools hamstrung because if they don't do ABC, XYZ, they're not getting this money.
Yep.
And so then I just read an article, I won't say which one it was, but there's a local college that we have here in Alberta that has had to make significant cuts because enrollment is down. And then when you continue to read through, well, the enrollment that's down is from all of the students that are coming from somewhere else.
Mm.
If we are relying on foreign students to keep our universities and our colleges afloat, something is
Something
wrong.
is wrong. Something's very wrong. Yeah.
Something is wrong, and that needs to be addressed. It's being able to get a whole system change, you guys. Like,
Mhm.
think about it. It's so much bigger than just the politics. It's life. We don't have to worry about any more investment going somewhere else because we've got idiots in Ottawa trying to shut us down.
Yeah.
That stops. We don't
Yeah.
have any more of our dairy farmers and our egg farmers and our poultry farmers and all of them being held back because of these idiotic cartels in the East that do it.
Yep.
That's what's happening. Like all of that, all the top comes off of all of that. You want things to be affordable? You're bitching because how expensive it is to get groceries? That ends because we're not under that albatross around our neck anymore. And
Yeah.
and I don't know what else to say to get people to just think about it. Just think about it and dream about it for a little bit. And then look at your kids and look at your grandkids and tell me you don't want that for them because you're too worried about what, your CPP that we could replace in a heartbeat
In a second. In a
if we
second.
if we had our own. And furthermore, to the seniors that are worried about this, do you honestly think we're going to let you starve?
I
Like
know, I don't
really?
understand that. I don't
I
understand that.
I almost find that offensive. You think
Yeah.
we're gonna leave you to die?
Yeah.
No,
Your
we're
children and
not.
grandchildren are not gonna care for you. They are.
Mm-mm.
It's and that's
No.
it. I mean, and that's just really the Alberta way. It
Yes.
really, really is, and we need to trust in that. We need
Yep.
to look around. Like, I'm looking out my window right now. I'm seeing the beautiful mountains in Montana, but between
Mm,
me and there are several ranches.
yeah.
And these people have been on the land
Yeah.
in this area. I know the family. I'm looking right at their garage there. I know
Yeah.
that family, they came here in the late 1800s and they settled this area. And that's the type of people that we had. Hardworking, entrepreneurial, but
Yeah.
also the community where they care for each other. Like,
Yeah.
I go to church and I'm like I'm an outsider, but I've been made to feel welcome. But I look at these families who have been here for generations and
Mhm.
how their histories are entwined with each other
Yeah.
and caring for each other and looking out for each other through the good times and the bad times and all
Mhm.
those different things. And that's how Albertans are. And that's why I have so much hope. So much hope for
Exactly.
this. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
And
gonna be amazing.
it can only get better.
Yes.
It really, I'm not saying that the transition period will be great.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know
Might be
what
some
that's going
bumpy
to be.
spots. There will be, let's be honest, there'll be bumpy spots. But you know what? Let's talk about that then, Kathy. So there's a lot of questions about like what are the next steps? So obviously you and
Oh
I are
yeah.
involved in the education part, and that right now has got to be the number one focus
Mhm.
of Albertans is making sure that we are educated about this, that we understand the root cause and we understand the remedy.
Right.
Right. But then what?
Well, then we have to organize ourselves to enlist our government, our provincial
Mhm.
government, to make some next steps on our behalf, which is what's happening now. But it's also causing a little bit of confusion
Right.
because we've got Alberta Prosperity Project, who has been for months and months and months collecting um, not signatures. And this is where the confusion lies in. They're not collecting signatures. They're collecting information, contact information from those Albertans who say, if a referendum were held, I would vote yes. So they're
Mhm.
collecting information on those who intend to vote yes on this. Yes, I want to secede from Confederation. And
And they're doing a good job of it.
doing a fantastic job of it. The reason for that, the reason that they're doing that is so when it comes time, they know where to find you. So to get, rather than going door to door to door to door, they just know where to find everybody instantly because we do have a time crunch now. Our time crunch just got a little bit longer. So we're very, very happy about that. At the same time, please go ahead and I guess register, maybe is the way to say it, with APP to let them know that you would be
Register your intent.
your intent, to
Mhm.
let them know so they know where to find you. Now, there's some other ones that are out there saying the same thing. If it makes you feel better, I guess register your intent with them too, whatever. But I would personally, I would stick with the folks at APP. That's what I would do.
And yes, we will put the link in the description, the video description, so you'll find it there.
That's right. So that's the first thing. And talk to your neighbors, tell your neighbors, share some information. So that's that part of the process is get that. Once once our premier is feeling like it's time to do this, she's then going to put out a referendum. And we're told probably 2026 is the date. We don't know what part of 2026, but that's what we're told. When that happens, you need to show up at the ballot box.
Mhm.
Whether you're for or against, you need to show up at the ballot box so that we know exactly how. In the meantime, between now and then, she herself is going to be hosting the What's Next panel, I think is what
Mhm.
she's calling it, right? What's next or what now? Can't remember which
Something
word it,
something like that, yeah.
something like that. She herself, that is how seriously she is taking this. She's not leaving it to anybody else. She's chairing it. She's looking after it. They're going to be going all the way across the province, all over the place. They want to hear from us. You have an obligation to go. Go. I don't care what else you got going on that night. You need to go and you need to get up to the mic, or if it's a piece of paper to fill out, let your voice be heard. whether you're on the yes side or whether you're on the no side, I don't care. But we need to have a very, very, very good picture of where the majority of Albertans sit. Because if it does turn out that the majority of Albertans, along with that petition, that citizens initiated referendum petition, which is what all of these signatures that APP is collecting is going to go towards, if those two numbers are high enough, she will call the referendum next year. And then that sets it all off in motion. But you've got to get ready to sign that petition. Now, here's the other thing to pay attention to. There was also some confusion we found out as to what this petition is going to look like. When the official citizens initiated referendum petition on the referendum to leave Canada, leave Confederation comes out, it is going to be on a official Elections Alberta paper. It's a legal document, guys. It's not just, oh yeah, I'll sign this online petition or that online petition. It is a legal document that is going to require your full name in writing that they can read, okay? So use your best penmanship that day, your full name, your address, your contact information, and your signature. It's a legal document. And then that all gets sent into Elections Alberta. It has to be in pen. This is a big deal, right? So it's got to be done correctly. So when people are coming by, even if you don't like giving them your information, I get that. But we're going to have to just swallow that for a minute so we can get this done and get it done right.
Well, it's to ensure the integrity of the referendum and of the petition for the
Exactly.
referendum, right? So it's just
Exactly.
like we wouldn't necessarily want people showing up to vote that didn't have any ID to prove that they lived in Alberta, that they were actually Alberta residents. It's the
Exactly.
same type of thing. We have to prove that we are Alberta residents
Yeah,
in order to participate in this process. So
that's
yeah,
right.
you just give them your information and get
And
your
away you go.
name on there and away you go. Yeah.
That's right. So let APP know, let the Alberta Prosperity Project know that you intend to participate in this citizens initiated referendum, which is a petition. Then when that petition comes around, sign it. When it comes around, that petition then gets sent to the legislature. And then from there, it's in the provincial government's court to hold that referendum. It's just those 3 steps.
Yep. Not rocket science, but yeah, definitely has to be done in a particular order. Yeah. And
And
then
thank
give
goodness. Could you
right?
imagine the pandemonium if it wasn't? Like,
Absolute chaos, absolute case. Yeah.
yeah, thank goodness there's order.
Yeah, there's a reason and there's reasons for that. And here's the thing that people, let's say that the government then does put forward a referendum and there's the clear majority.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that the next day we are a sovereign, independent nation.
No,
No,
that's
no.
not how this
Remember,
goes.
it's the negotiations get triggered.
That's right.
Now we're in the negotiation stage. Now, I've heard some people say, well, they're just going to drag it out for, 12 years.
Eons.
Well, okay.
Maybe.
We don't control how the rest of the country reacts to this. That's on them. And
Mm-hmm.
we cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, we have to do this within the legal framework that Canada has set out. And there's a reason for that. If we do not, um, well, a lot of bad things can happen. But one of the
Yeah.
really important things of this process is that in the end, that we receive international recognition from other countries, right?
Yes.
Stating that, yes, we recognize your independence, Alberta, and we are willing to create a relationship with you, Alberta,
Mm-hmm.
as this new country that you are. Canada was the first country to recognize Kosovo when they
Yeah.
made their declaration of independence. It's a very important part of the process. And what a lot of times North Americans don't understand is that these things actually happen quite a bit all around the world.
They do.
The borders change.
They do.
We haven't seen that in North America, so it kind of freaks people out. But if you ever go over to Eastern Europe or even Western Europe,
Mhm.
borders change. And
Well,
it's
even just Google it. Google how many countries have become independent in the last 100 years.
well, even
Oh,
since 1989. It's crazy.
yeah,
Oh yeah, right. They were all under the Soviet Union, right?
exactly. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. And
That's
even
true.
some of those countries like Czechoslovakia. have
Yeah.
then separated into two.
Yeah.
So it's not a crazy thing that they would have us believe.
Yeah.
And it's a really hopeful and a wonderful thing. So
It is. It is. I think it is. And so I just continue to encourage everybody, get all the information you can.
yeah.
It's all out there. I mean, we've got three that we recommend that you pay attention to, and one of
Oh
them is
yes.
Mike, right? Michael Wagner,
Yep.
outstanding guy,
Yep.
completely knowledgeable.
Read his
Oh,
books.
read his books. They're so good. They're so good. And then Corey Morgan, also a pioneer in this, honestly, a
Absolutely.
pioneer in this. So he's really good
Read
to
his
listen to.
book.
Yeah, and he's funny too.
And
Um,
he's been doing some great videos,
yes.
Q&A about Alberta separation. They're like 15 minutes long. Look him up on YouTube. Corey
Yeah.
Morgan. And yeah, very, very knowledgeable.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And then on the legal side of this, I really highly recommend Keith Wilson.
Yeah.
You want to go follow him on X and listen to the podcast that he's done. And he just really lays a lot of this to rest too. He's kind of he's a constitutional lawyer, so
Yeah.
definitely worth listening to.
So yeah, lots of expertise out there in this area, far more
Hmm.
than what we have. But we're focusing on reaching out to women who and their supporters, so their husbands and brothers and that type of stuff, but who to this point have not become politically involved, maybe who feel that they don't know enough.
Yeah.
And all you really need to know, understand is the root cause and the
Hmm.
remedy. The other stuff, that's all going to fall into place,
Exactly.
right? But and we're finding that folks are really, really open to the bit of information that we share with them because it does empower them and it makes them feel like I know enough to have an opinion about this because I know the problem and I know the remedy.
That's right. That's right. And we even found last week, in so many ways, we were, preaching to the choir, so to speak.
Mhm. Mhm.
However, they learned a new song all the same,
Yeah, it's true.
right?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
it doesn't get old. So, if you guys want Angela and I to come and chat with you, it doesn't matter where you are in the province.
we'll
We both
come.
have vehicles and we will both come to you and let us know.
Yeah,
We want to help you get this information. We want to help everybody be able to make an informed decision. I mean, obviously, you know what our decision is, but at the same time, we're not here to really push anything. We just want to make sure you know what you need to know when you go to that ballot box.
exactly. And yeah, like this month for May, we've got meetings in Calgary, we've
Hmm.
got meetings in Medicine Hat, we've got meetings in Mountain View, we've got meetings in Cardston, and we've got other ones that are in the works. So yeah, I will put our email address also in the description so that if folks want to get a hold of us, they can
Hmm.
email us and we will make that connection. And yeah,
Keep educating.
yep.
And what better time? It's summer. Like we could do the backyard parties and do
Oh my
it,
goodness. Yeah,
right?
delicious.
I agree. I agree.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, I think that's about it, huh, Kathy?
I think we did it. I don't
Yeah,
think we stayed within the time frame we set for
I don't
ourselves.
think we did. So if you lasted this long,
Way to
congratulations.
go.
And yeah, thanks a lot. Totally appreciate it.
I love you.
I love you too.
Talk to you soon.
Alrighty.